You're listening to 90.7 FM WKGC, Panama City.
From WKGC Public Media, this is ReelTalk, the place where you can join the cinematic conversations frame by frame each week. I'm your host, R.L. Terry. If movies are your thing, give us a ring, 850-772-6803 to join the discussion on air, or you can now text the show at 850-329-8936. Lowbrow thrills, high-budget spectacle, plus you get treated to a rare appearance by big screen icon Sharon Stone. Today we are talking Nobody 2. Proof that sometimes all a B-movie needs is an A-list wallet to unleash maximum mayhem, all in 1.5 hours. Joining me today is returning guest and friend of the show, Burl Childress. Welcome back to the show, Burl.
Hey, it's great to be back.
Wonderful to have you back. Thanks so much for coming on the show today. For those that may not have listened to your previous episode, what can you tell our listeners about yourself and what got you into radio?
Well, I wrote a screenplay for a movie, and word just got back, and there was an opening at a radio station that I applied for, and I got it, and I got into talk radio then.
And it's been had a thrilling time, a fun time in radio since then, and so I'm very glad that you're able to lend that talent and that, I say screen presence, but we're radio, that speaker presence, here on the show. So again, thank you so much for coming back here today and talking about what is going to be a very fun movie. Before we head to this kitschy amusement park in rural Midwest, I think it was Wisconsin. It was either Wisconsin or Minnesota, but it was Wisconsin for today's movie. Have you ever returned to a childhood, vacation destination as an adult, just to learn that maybe it wasn't as great as you thought?
Well, just a little different. I went to the Ohio State Fair when I was younger, and the rides were incredible. I thought they were fantastic. And then fast forward about 20 years, and I was taking my kids there when they were younger, and it got safer.
Oh, got safer? Okay. So the opposite of what we kind of have here in Plummersville or Plummersville. Took many, road trip vacations with my family growing up, and so it was more of which of these is really the best example. And so the one that I'm reminded of the most, where it's a little disappointing when you go back and look at it, was a children's museum. And as a kid, went to this children's museum, and it was just enlightening. It was so much fun. It felt like it was way ahead of the time, and so there's all this science, technology, engineering, and math way before STEM became a thing. And so it was all right there. And as an adult, went back, and even putting myself in the shoes of an 8, 9, 10-year-old at this museum, I looked at it then, and it was just like, oh. This was it. This is what I was so excited about. Not nearly as dramatic as the example in here, because when I've gone back to theme parks I visited as a kid, I've generally liked them. So not quite this example, but I do remember that. Where I was thinking, like, also, gosh, I felt this was so much larger when I was a kid. But then we could say that for a lot of different things. Karen, how about you? Karen is producing our show today, listeners. Karen, do you have a place that you went back to as an adult and you're kind of either underwhelmed or a little disappointed compared to how it was when you were a kid?
I really can't say I have, because, I grew up here in Panama City, and we used to have Miracle Strip Amusement Park, and so, I went there all the time as a kid. Well, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, they tore that down. So, next door is Shipwreck. Shipwreck Island, whenever I was a kid, I'm gonna have to, use some 90s slang. It was da bomb. But going back now, it's still fun, but it's it's not the same.
Yeah.
You know, as a kid, it's like, oh my gosh, these slides are just so amazing, and just the park was just so huge, but it's just not the same now. You know, my kids get that experience I had when I was a child, but no, I totally understand. And this whole conversation is reminding me of a movie. I don't know if you've seen Vacation.
Oh, yes.
From 2015, I do believe, where Rusty takes his kids to Wally World. So it kind of just comes full circle, you know.
Yeah, it's funny how that works out, and that's certainly the backdrop of our movie today, Burl. We've got this kitschy, very tacky, unsafe, because you talk about the fair being safer. We go to a place that's not very safe. Of course, there's a whole lot of things in this community that make it unsafe. But listeners, if you missed it at the top of the hour, today we are reviewing the new action movie Nobody 2, starring Bob Odenkirk, featuring an appearance by the most famous lover of white silk scarves, Sharon Stone. A little nod there to her iconic character of Catherine Trammell in Basic Instinct. 850-772-6803 to join the discussion on air, or you can text the show at 850-329-8936. For those that may not have seen the movie yet, Burl, what's it all about?
It's about a workaholic assassin, Hutch Mansell. Bob Odenkirk takes his family on a much-needed vacation, as you'll see through the movie. He took them back to a kid hunt when he was younger that he and his brother went to on the town of Plummersville. Okay. However, he soon finds out in the crosshairs of corrupt theme park owner, operator, a shady sheriff, a bloodthirsty crime boss, Sharon Stone.
Yeah, we've got it all right here, and I can't state it enough. An hour and a half. You know, we don't often get to go to movies that are fantastically entertaining and under 2 hours. It's like nowadays everything is like how much past 2 hours can we extend our movie, which usually winds up in puffed up plots that really have no weight in them at all. Is just to buffer that runtime. I loved it. It moves along at a very fast clip the whole time. And when I review movies, I jokingly say that you get a star just for being under 2 hours. So just by default, you're going to get a star. You're going to get a star just for that. But on the 20,000-foot level, Burl, what did you think of Nobody 2?
I thought it was fun. I mean, it was a fun movie. And to get back to what you said about under 2 hours, I think there's a misnomer that everybody says a movie under an hour and a half can't be a good movie. Mm-hmm. This proves that wrong.
Yes, it does.
This is a very entertaining movie. And I think it's one you're going to sit back and watch a couple of times over.
Yeah,
just because of that reason.
Yeah, I think so too. It's definitely got rewatchability. I'd say even more than its first one. And we don't have a lot of time to go into the first Nobody, which I liked well enough. But I enjoyed this one even more than I did the first one. So I feel it's going to have some of that rewatchability in it. I love how fast-paced it is. I mentioned that already. It's precisely what you would expect. Just hearing the plot or just seeing the trailer, you are treated to an hour and a half of just fun. From beginning to end, it feels as though that it wandered off this neon-lit drive-in movie theater from, say, the 1970s, and somebody gave it an A-list budget. Way more than it would have had this come out in kind of the golden age of these type of action / fight choreography, kung fu, karate type movies. And what I like about that is it channels that energy, that fun from a B movie, but it makes it with fantastic actors, a great director, and no matter if you've seen a dozen of the Ordinary Man Goes Berserk movies, you're still going to like it because it follows the formula. Proof that following a formula is often a good thing. Subverting a formula or going against the grain, which some would argue is how you prove yourself as an auteur, I would say it doesn't. Some formulas just work. So don't reinvent the wheel. And I like how this movie sticks with that formula. It's got a grindhouse quality to it, and it's kind of defies some logic, adheres to some others, but everything operates as a well-oiled machine.
No doubt about it. You're going to like this movie.
Yeah.
You're going to like it from start to finish. If you like the first one, this in a sense, it's part 2, but it continues Hutch's journey.
Yes, it does.
And it builds on it. You see his depression. He wants to do this for his family. He sees them sort of drifting from him, so he pulls them back apart to go to this childhood hunt. I mean, and who doesn't like the sound of Plummersville? Come on,
Definitely. Well, with all this in mind, let's dive in, or rather one might say drive in, because it shares a lot in common with those mid-century B-movie drive-in pictures. So there was a time, Burl, where drive-ins were the place to find high-concept, grindhouse-like action movies, and nobody, too, appears to blend big-budget polish with B-movie sensibilities. And so what did you think of that quality and tone of the movie?
I think that as the movie went on, you sort of got a sense of what was going to happen next.
Yeah.
When the old drive-in movies, when you took your kids to the movie, you loaded them up in the car to where you could just load that car full of kids, and go. You wanted to get your money's worth.
Yeah.
It had a real workmanship quality to it. It went from one thing to the next. There was no law in it. It kept you going through the whole movie. Who doesn't like a movie that does all those things? Oh,
no, definitely. It delivers exactly what it promises. And in fact, I think you get more than perhaps you even thought you were going to get out of the movie. I think tonally it works for me because it does follow that formula. It knows it's got this. I wouldn't call it a camp movie, but there's certainly some camp quality to the action in the movie, and it embraces that. It embraces the star of the movie is like the fight sequences, the action pieces. Like those are like you've got the actors are bringing it to life, but the real star here is this fantastically fun fight choreography from beginning to end, no holds barred, and you're gonna get any and everything that could possibly be captured in a fight in this movie, and it rocks that quality. It knows you're not there for a deep story. You're not there for character exploration. You're not there for social commentary, though there may be some in the movie that can be explored in retrospect. You are there for one reason and one reason alone, that you want to kick back, turn the world off outside, and sit there and enjoy the ride like a coaster. And a lot of B movies, have that quality. They were there to entertain you, to have fun with these worlds created on the screen. And that's why, I think that's in part of what makes the movie successful, is that you've got this soul of, grindhouse style action movie, but you've got this money to make it, appear more polished and mainstream to appeal to a wider audience. Because had it looked grindhousey, I don't think it would have had the box office numbers that it did. Probably from like cinephiles and other people that enjoy action movies. But this, it creates an environment for general audiences and just come in here and have fun.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that gets hurt.
Oh yes,
and he keeps going.
Yes, he does. He's not like John McClane, who is who should be dead before we get to the end.
This is a guy when he gets hit, you can hear it.
Yes, you do.
He doesn't stand up. Like I wasn't hurt.
Nope.
I mean, he gets hurt in this movie.
He does.
He rolls around after he's hurt and does something.
And the beginning of the movie, when he's having the talk with his wife, in fact, we get a whole, almost a text message sent. We need to talk. And so it already established that there is some strife there. And on top of everything else that's going on in his life, now he's got, this this domestic situation at home, and the next morning he walks in and he's still bleeding, and I love how it's just like, you're still bleeding. So, but it's a testament to what you just said, Burl, that this everyday man, he gets hurt really badly
in this movie.
He really does. When I survey the landscape of action movies that are out there, Burl, so many appear to take themselves a little too seriously, particularly the way superhero movies have largely gone in recent years. Or you got the opposite. So you've got the serious movies, or there's just slapdash movies that are creations that are too bonkers to even be satisfying. And so they've gone off the rails, but way too far, where it's just like, I can't enjoy this. You've just broken all the rules just for the sake of breaking them, and there's no logic here. In today's landscape of hyper-serious action movie franchises, is there something refreshing about a movie that embraces its own drive-in style roots?
No doubt about it. I mean, this is a guy who he has the family issues. Mm-hmm. A lot like you said, he's waiting on his wife to send the text. And he just got done beating somebody up, and he's like, his fingers are bloody. He's like wiping the blood off his.
And those three little dots, I think, cause him to sweat way more than the fight that he just got out of.
Yeah, he sees a text coming, and he's like, I hope it's the right. I hope she's okay.
And then the dramatic irony is, we see what she's typing, and we're like, oh no,
no. And then she backs out of it and says something else,
mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this everyday guy, happens to be this awesome, action person, and the whole family's dealing with it. In the first movie, they didn't know him to do all this. In the second movie, they knew what he was doing.
They're cued in the second one.
So there's definitely more family input to second movie, no doubt about it.
And I think it makes it very relatable as well, because while there's a lot of exaggerations in this movie, because it is a cliche action film, there's still a relatable quality to these characters, and we can relate to situations in which we find ourselves over our heads, and in which we feel like caught between a rock and a hard place, trying to escape this trap that we have fallen in, and that we can identify with things not going well at home, and we can identify where each of these characters are coming from, and I like that about this action movie, that he is relatable, much like John McClane redefined the action hero, in 1988 with Die Hard. What made him great is the greater degree of relatability to this everyday guy. He's just your average cop from New York who's gone to the wife's Christmas party at her work to try to reconnect and bring the family back together. There's that family quality there. We have family quality here, and I like how we can connect with that. That resonates. We may never find ourselves battling a crime boss like Hutch does in the movie, but we do battle our own demons, and I like that here. And we're tapping into things that we can connect with, just like a family, going on a vacation like this. I opened the show with that question because we've probably all been on vacations like that with our families, and I think in that it feels almost very candid, and so it's very raw, and so I was really all about that in the movie.
Hey, all they want to do is just make memories.
Yeah.
And that's what he touches on in the whole movie.
Yeah, very much so. Before we go to our first break here, who do you think the audience is for this movie, Burl? Do you think it's those that just love pure action movies, perhaps lovers of camp, a little of both? So, like, who do you think? Would you say there's a target audience for the film?
Well, I'll say this: when I went and saw the movie, a lot of couples. There were a lot of couples.
Really? Okay.
If you look at you pick out your seat nowadays, a lot of twos. I didn't see many more than that, but a lot of twos together. And so I think it's people that, this affects them on a really, on a part of their lives that, hey, this is an average guy. Yeah. They can identify with him. He's not like a superhero. Yeah. This is just an average guy, that, they know the character. They know what he's going through. They know the difficulties facing with his wife and his family, and he's trying to do something about it.
Yeah. Perhaps it's kind of like this. I'd say in the 80s and 90s, there was this, and even in the 70s, there was this idea of like on a date night, you'd go see a kung fu movie and then get a pizza and have a milkshake, and like that was the idea of the date. And so perhaps this is kind of channeling that same idea, which may explain why there were all those couples there at this movie. So, listeners, you are listening today to Real Talk on 90.7 WKGC. I'm your host, R.L. Terry, and today I am joined by returning guest and friend of the show, Burl Childress. This hour, we are talking Nobody 2, the sequel to the 2021 hit Nobody, now in cinemas nationwide. When we come back, Burl and I will continue our discussion. Have you seen Nobody 2 or have questions about it or comments on it? You can join our conversation on air by calling 850-772-6803 or text the show at 850-329-8936. We'll be right back after this break.
Experience the elements that shape our future. Join the Gulf Coast State College Foundation for Elemental, an evening of earth, water, air, and fire. Friday, September 26th at the Elegant Hotel Indigo in Panama City. It's more than a dinner. Enjoy a high-end silent auction, immersive storytelling, and a celebration of the power of education to transform lives. Presented by Bill Kramer Chevrolet GMC with the support from the St. Joe Company. This unforgettable evening helps provide scholarships for students in Bay, Gulf, and Franklin counties. Reserve your seat now and get all the details at gcsefoundation.org/events Elemental, where community, education, and impact ignite.
This is Mingo. If you think you've heard it all, think again. Jazz for the Night Owls.
Monday through Thursday at 10 p.m. on 90.7 FM WKGC.
Welcome back to Real Talk on 90.7 WKGC. I'm your host, R.L. Terry, and today I am joined by returning guest and friend of the show, Burl Childress. This hour we're talking about Nobody 2, the sequel to the 2021 hit Nobody, now in cinemas nationwide. Have you seen Nobody 2 or have questions about it? Join us on air, 850-772-6803. You can also text the show at 850-329-8936. I want to take a moment to talk about the casting, Burl. Nobody 2 unites three very different screen presences in the film. We've got Bob Odenkirk's relatable, everyman energy. Talked a lot about that before the break. Sharon Stone's rare but magnetic return to the big screen as this campy villain. And Hutch's wife, played by Connie Nelson, who's also commanding gravitas. And we were talking off air that her character's more developed in Nobody 2. There's more dimensions to her than she had in the first one. How do these distinct acting styles shape the film's tone, in your opinion? Or maybe perhaps, what does this casting say about the kind of action movie Nobody 2 wants to be?
I think it wants to be a movie that brings people in. Mm-hmm. I mean, every movie does, but you've got a husband, you have a wife, and the difficulties that they go through, and then you have Sharon Stone over here, this guy has to go, he wants to do something for his family, he sees everybody just sort of drifting away. Yeah. He wants to pull them together. He knows that his dad took he and his brother to this Plummersville when he was younger, and he wanted to build memories. And he talks about that, and it's just the type of movie that you want to see. It's the type of movie you want to see be successful. Yeah. And even though you know what's going to happen in this movie, it's still exciting to see how they go about doing it.
Yeah, it's a little predictable, but you don't care because it's so fun to watch.
It's entertaining.
Yeah. In a way, it reminds me, of what separated Columbo from all the other, mystery movies and TV shows out there in which it was a whodunit. You're following Jessica Fletcher or you're following Poirot to see who done it. Well, Columbo subverted that formula by showing you very proudly who done it at the very beginning, but the fun in it was watching Columbo figure it out, or getting them to fall into a trap of their own devising, trip them up, and so, just because you may be able to predict the ending doesn't negate a movie's ability to keep you entertained the whole time, because it played out very similarly to how I thought it was going to play out, but I was still fully engaged the whole time, and in part, it's these actors. The actors, they're quite good. Like, we've got solid performances. The performative dimension is dynamic. It is it hooks you. You feel connected with these characters and with these actors. And I like how we have three different screen presences, three different acting styles here, because it's like a three-legged stool. It's very stable, and having these three different styles in here is also very stable, because we're tapping into the different dynamics in a given situation, and we're able to develop these three different angles to what's going on, and it also provides an ability to kind of root for or root against one of these characters, and in creating this world, I say the casting choices that were made in such a way that if I were to imagine these characters played by somebody else, I almost can't. Like, I don't see it playing out nearly as well, because our villain isn't on screen that much. So you need somebody who can command the screen as soon as they are on it. And I can't think of anybody else, aside from Sharon Stone, who could do that. It's helped in part that we don't get to see her very often. And then Bob Odenkirk, he can't become a Jean-Claude Van Damme. We need him to be kind of like a John McClane type, except he's even more vulnerable than John, because he should have died way earlier in the movie. And so I like that. But then she represents the nuclear family that's under attack in here. So that we have a mom, but it's a mom who is concerned with the health of the family, but also a mom that I believe she's a real estate agent, so she's got a career. So I like that balance. They're showing that you can have your traditional family and you can have this career. There's no reason to have to choose between the two of them, and that's what he wants. Like, he wants to provide for his family, but he's still very concerned about what's going on at home.
Definitely. There's a part in the movie that he's still that guy that has to run the trash out. He's late for the trash.
He's always late for the trash.
Get out. Yeah. He's doing that. And as he's taking the trash out, his wife is going one way, his daughter's going another way, his son's going another way, and here he is holding a trash can.
Yeah.
So he sees everything going away from him.
Yeah.
And I thought the support cast did it really well.
Oh, yeah.
His son, I'm sorry I don't know the actor's name in front of me, but he's definitely he's involved more in this movie, and there's a scene in a amusement park or a casino. I'm trying to think.
Is it the arcade?
The arcade, right. And there's a scene in there, and he and his dad are sort of lumped together, and he goes, I need to talk to you about what went on, He was protecting his sister. He goes, you need to use your, he goes, Dad, I thought that was phenomenal what you did in there. He goes, that was wrong. You need to use your words.
Yeah. But it also shows where your actions do influence a parent's actions do influence their kids, because he talks about that, because I think his son at one point says something to the effect of, well, Dad, that's what you would have done. He's like, yes, but be better than me, or it was something like that. And so and that's it's used to develop the characters in this movie, but it's also reflective of something in real life. It's a reminder that that we are always being watched, and so to be mindful of that because that was the son was absorbing those actions and those approaches, and it becomes harder and harder to say, yes, that's what you see me do, but I don't need you to do that. And it shows where it can be difficult to have those encounters.
Well, he talks about, his dad took him to the park when he was younger and stuff, and his dad wanted him to be better than him, and he wants his son to be better than him,
And what parent doesn't think that?
Right. Every parent does. They want to see their kids succeed and be better than they were.
Yeah, exactly.
So they deals with that too. So this is a movie about a very ordinary guy who has a particular set of skills.
Yes, he does. I'd be remiss if we didn't spend a moment talking about Sharon Stone's rare big screen appearance as our main villain, Lindina. And while not on the screen a lot, the moments when she was on screen definitely stole the show. Much like her iconic character of Catherine Trammell from Basic Instinct. How does her performance, Burl, shape this film's energy? And do you feel that it also carries with it this nostalgic, presence of a nostalgic thrill?
Well, I definitely think this film needed a bad, it needed somebody bad in this movie, and she was definitely bad in this movie. She walked onto the screen, you could tell they had a music, like her theme music that came on, so you identify with that immediately, and she didn't disappoint.
No.
She was bad from start to finish. She was bad. I mean, I really thought for a second there she was going to strangle her dog, but she ended up not,
There's some restraint.
Restraint
there.
But, she just took command of everything. She wanted to know exactly what was going on and their numbers for their business, as every bad person does.
Oh, yeah.
Want to know how much money they're making, and everything. And get rid of anybody that gets them in a way of them making their money, So, she fits that to a T. And, Sharon Stone still looked pretty good in this movie.
Yeah, she sure does.
I don't know how old she is, but, she still looked very good.
And she, the character that she plays has this fun camp quality.
Definitely.
Very, very campy villain. Terrifying. And plays it straight, but in playing this straight, terrifying villain, there's also this healthy level of camp, just in how she looks, how over the top everything is, and she exemplified that balance between playing it straight, but also having this camp sensibility that comes along with it, which helps in being a very hyper-stylized villain. And her hyper-stylized villain is well worth the ticket price alone. With every line of dialogue from her is razor-edged. I love the wardrobe that was selected for her. She looks to be savoring this role. She is having so much fun. And I'd say that with the entire cast. They look like working on this movie was an absolute blast. But they needed somebody, particularly, since she's probably only on screen for 10, 15 minutes collectively tops, maybe even less than 10 minutes. They needed somebody that could deliver that larger than life menace that feels ripped from the pages of a pulp novel. And she does it in spades. Not only playing the villain, she plays with the character of Lindina, revealing the levels of absurdity without ever letting the stakes slip up. And she did such a great job with it, and I'm so glad that we had the treat of getting to see her in this movie. Now, Karen, I kind of see you nodding and looking over here. Did you want to chime in?
Yeah, actually two things. I looked it up. She's 67.
Looks fantastic.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Sensational.
Oh my goodness. I hope I look that good at that age. And I just, listening to you guys talk about the movie, I might have missed it. You may have mentioned it earlier in the intro, but would you call this like a action comedy?
Well, while it certainly has a very...
It's got comic aspects to it.
It has comic aspects to it, but no, I wouldn't characterize it as a comedy. It's got a healthy sense of humor.
Yeah.
It plays it straight, like an old, like Grindhouse or, Kung Fu type movie. It plays it straight, yet it does have some laugh out loud moments. That it's almost in the deadpan delivery that gives you the laugh out loud moment. So I wouldn't characterize it as a comedy, even though it has humorous moments that kind of reset the emotions as you go throughout the film.
Awesome.
It's almost like when Hutch gets hit, it's almost funny.
Yeah, it is.
Because his reaction, a lot of action movies see these guys get hit and they stand up and take it, go around. No, he's falling to the ground. He's bleeding.
He is. And he's like...
And you realize how real that looks,
I don't know how many Band-Aids he has to keep on hand, but he's got to have a ton of Band-Aids because in the car and whatever back pockets he has, because he needs them all throughout this movie. With undeniable roots in B action grindhouse style movies, Burl, does nobody suggest a revival or at least a reappreciation of the B movie aesthetic in mainstream cinema? What do you think?
Well, I hope filmmakers see it. Mm-hmm. I hope filmmakers see it and realize what people like.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like an experience where they're going to learn something they never learned before. Yeah. It doesn't have to be so technically challenged, as some action movies are. Yeah. This is just a good time. This is something, you go watch, you have a good time, you can talk about it coming home, what scenes you liked, the Colin Hanks, played a bad deputy in it, and I thought he did a really good job too, just a good movie all the way around. That's what people want to see. They want to get their money's worth.
Yeah.
You don't want to, when you go see a movie, when you're driving home with your wife or your girlfriend or whoever, and you say, wow, that just wasn't worth the money, or it just wasn't very good.
Yeah.
This is a movie you're going to go, wow, finally, this was worth the money, Yeah. And I think with, what movies cost these days, you want to be entertained. You want to make sure that, this is something you really like.
Yeah, it's doing very well at the box office. I think Weapons is still doing a little better than Nobody 2, but still doing pretty well at the box office. And I agree, Burl. I hope it continues to do well because since studios nowadays are ran by MBAs, looking at audience data all the time, sometimes even researching movies to death. I hope that when they look at the data that shows healthy audience numbers, going to see this movie, that we do see a resurgence, even a mild one, of it, not only this type of action movie, but just movies that are there to entertain us, and that we're talking about now, probably talk about months or maybe even years from now. Go back and look at these movies, and I think it could. Kind of wake some filmmakers and studios up to be like, okay, not everything has to be deeply thought provocative. There is, we need those too, but I think we have, at least the attempt is anyway, to have way more of those now than a movie that's escapist for us to just simply be entertained for an hour and a half or 2 hours. And so I think the kind of the over-the-top aesthetic in this movie that's geared towards mainstream audiences, could result in a kind of reawakening or an appreciation of movies that are there to keep us entertained. And they're not concerned about winning awards. I doubt anybody in this movie is thinking for 1 second it's going to get nominated. They don't care though, and so maybe that's a good thing that they don't care. And I hope we certainly see that. You're listening to Real Talk on 90.7 WKGC. I'm your host, R.L. Terry, and today I am joined by a returning guest and friend of the show, Burl Childress. This hour we are talking about Nobody 2, the sequel to the 2021 hit Nobody, now in cinemas nationwide. When we come back, Burl and I will continue our discussion. Have you seen Nobody 2 or have questions about it? You can join our conversation on air by calling 850-772-6803 or text the show at 850-329-8936. We'll be right back after this break.
Hi, this is WKGC's Chef Chris, host of Doing Dinner. Every Thursday, I teach you how to create a different themed dinner party that your guests will find deliciously fun. You can also call to join me on air to ask me any questions about this week's dinner party or anything else culinary or hospitality on your mind. In case you can't listen live, you can also listen later through your favorite podcast service. Let's create an experience together. Doing Dinner, Thursdays at noon on 90.7 WKGC.
Get your weekend started right with Friday Fixins every Friday at noon on WKGC 90.7 FM. Now, whether it's B. Maxwell or your favorite auntie behind the mic, we're serving up a hot plate of soul, blues, and R&B, and a little taste of what's coming up on Soulful Saturday. Pull up, turn it up, and get your fix every Friday at noon on WKGC Public Media.
Welcome back to Real Talk on 90.7 WKGC. I'm your host, R.L. Terry, and today I am joined by returning guest and friend of the show, Burl Childress. This hour we are talking about Nobody 2, the sequel to the 2021 hit Nobody, now in cinemas nationwide. Have you seen Nobody 2 or have questions about it? Join us on air, 850-772-6803, or text the show at 850-329-8936. Burl, what does this movie's approach to over-the-top action and violence say about the current appetite for action movies? And could you say that Nobody 2 is perhaps a type of gateway for a new generation to discover, not only this movie, but more importantly, the kinds of films that inspired it? What do you think about those ideas?
I think this isn't a Hallmark movie.
No.
This isn't a Hallmark movie.
No.
But I do think that it brings back honest fun to action. Action doesn't have to be a spectacle. And this is definitely not a spectacle type movie. It brings a group of characters together, and they each do what they're good at.
Yeah.
They each bring a little something to the table, and it's enjoyable.
Yeah.
You can sit back and watch it, and you feel like you got your money's worth.
Yeah, I think it. Karen asked earlier if it's a comedy, and it's not a comedy, but the action and violence are played for laughs to some extent, even though it's not slapstick comedy. And I think when you play it for laughs, or you intentionally make it over the top, then it has a more palatable quality, because we're not talking. It's not a war picture. It's not the type of violence that I think would make anybody squeamish or feel uncomfortable, because it's just so over the top. It's completely unbelievable. And when something is completely unbelievable, you can get away with a lot, and that's what they do here.
I mean, it doesn't have a message. It doesn't have a message.
It certainly doesn't. And I think for those that may be watching this type of movie for the first time, which could be the case, like comedy, don't have as many traditional action movies these days. There's movies with a lot of action, but we don't have as many movies that are, say, an action movie. And I think this could be a gateway to introduce a new generation to this type of movie, to some that we might even talk about a little in our next segment here after we finish our review. And I hope to see that where it's like, I like what they did there, Nobody. Where did that come from? And then you discover, how, this was Kurosawa did this in Seven Samurai back in the 1950s, and I hope that it, at least in some small measure, inspires individuals to go back and look at movies like that, or early Quentin Tarantino films, to rediscover movies that they haven't seen before. Maybe they haven't seen Kill Bill. Maybe they haven't seen Pulp Fiction. But after watching a movie like this, I could see them going back and perhaps discovering those movies for them for the first time.
Definitely. When you think about what this movie brings to the table, it's got relationship. I mean, it hits on what normal people go through: relationships, issues with their kids, issues with a parent, issues with family, and then the normal things that people try to do. They try to go on vacation with their kids in the summer, so it does all those things. And it's still so enjoyable to watch. Even though all those things are highly stressful.
Yes, they are.
This is enjoyable.
A lot of stressors in this movie. Any last thoughts on Nobody 2, Burl, before we move into our conversation about some of our favorite action movies? Any last closing thoughts for our listeners today on Nobody 2?
See it.
You're
going to like it.
I was asking Karen, listeners, she admitted to not having seen the movie yet. So I'm asked her if the conversation was perhaps prompting her to go to the movie, and she was a little on the fence about it. So now that we're here towards the end of our review segment, Karen, have you been convinced that you should go out and see Nobody 2?
Yeah, I think I would enjoy it, because it's hearing you guys talk about it, and I can hear it in your voices, the excitement of sharing this information and sharing your experience. So it kind of has rubbed off on me a little bit. I'm going to be honest.
Well, if you haven't seen it, consider going out and watching it. I can't guarantee you your money back or anything, but I can almost guarantee you'll have a great time.
Definitely.
so you definitely want to go out and do that, because I should say I'm very confident that if you go see the movie, you'll have a lot of fun with it. In preparing for today's show, I thought, Burl, that it would be fun to talk about some of our favorite action movies. While not to the juggernaut it once was at the cinema in the mid and late 20th century, this movie demonstrates that there is still an audience for these movies. So since you're my guest today, what's the first title you have up for us?
Well, I'm going to go back in time a little bit.
Okay.
I'm a little older than Terry. And I think this movie spawned a whole genre of action movies, and that's Enter the Dragon.
Enter the Dragon. Very good choice.
When I was a kid, this was the movie to see. I think I saw it like 5 times.
Wow.
And just amazed by it, and what Bruce Lee could accomplish and do. Saddened by his death, but I think he spawned all these other actioneers. Chuck Norris, Steven Seagal,
Keanu Reeves, John Wick.
Don Dragon Wilson. I mean, you could go on and on if you think about it, all these movies. And it seemed like for a while there, every action movie was either karate, kung fu, something. Yeah. And I think Hollywood picked up with it and ran with it. And I think they ran it to death, Yeah. Now it's starting to make a little bit of a comeback. You saw it in a little bit in The Matrix. You saw Keanu Reeves, and John Wick. You see a little bit of it now coming back. Yeah. And I don't think it'll be as heavy as it once was, but I definitely think there's a lot of movies that play homage to it.
Yeah, it wasn't the first one I was going to bring up, but it is going to be the first one I bring up now. For me, Seven Samurai. I mentioned it earlier, Akira Kurosawa, very much inspiration for a lot of filmmakers out there, including George Lucas in aspects for Star Wars. Seven Samurai, listeners, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Absolutely beautiful film, and it really laid the foundation for ensemble action storytelling and so much cinematic technique that is still used today. Great deal of emotional resonance in this action movie, and unlike ones that rely on spectacle alone, there's a such a significant portion of the movie is character-driven. And we have character-driven moments in Nobody too. We talked about them today, have some fun characters. And Seven Samurai invests heavily in those characters. We know the samurai struggles, their flaws, their values. And even though they aren't, every man, they have dimension to them that we can connect with. And in that, it makes the sacrifices that they make throughout the film and their victories, emotionally devastating, but also inspiring at the same time. And a lot of the cinematography that is used in action movies takes its cue from what Kurosawa was able to do with Seven Samurai. Have you seen Seven Samurai, Burl?
I have, but it's been years ago. But I do know that Quentin Tarantino quotes it
does.
Being one of his favorite movies, and that he's watched it multiple times.
Yeah, I think it might even be, when asked his favorite movie, he might even have said Seven Samurai, but certainly a lot of homages in his movies to Seven Samurai, particularly with Kill Bill. A lot of Seven Samurai and Kill Bill. Hateful Eight, Magnificent Seven, a lot of connections there. So if you haven't ever heard of Seven Samurai before, you've probably heard of those other movies that we've mentioned from Quentin Tarantino. May want to check that out. What's another title that you have for us today?
Well, I hate to go on genre movies, but I'll say this sort of started one. I'm going to say First Blood.
First Blood.
With Sylvester Stallone.
Yes, Sylvester Stallone. We should say recent Kennedy Honors nominee, Sylvester Stallone.
And I mean, he's a good actor. He stays in his lane.
Yes.
He knows what he does and what he does well. And he's wonderful in The Tulsa King.
Yeah.
But if you look at what that movie brought, I mean, it was about a Vietnam veteran and what the things that he went through, and it really brought it reminded me when I was a kid and I used to go to the movies, there was always something they played at the intermission, and it was about littering, and it was an Indian, a tear bringing down his eye, people throwing stuff out their
I think
car.
I'm vaguely familiar with that.
Yeah,
I think I've seen it before.
And I mean, it's not like the hot dog bun catching a hot dog, but it brings where it's a sad moment in our nation, with a Vietnam vet having to go through what he went through and the struggles that he had, and then him sort of finding a way to use his skills and stuff. He finally decided to fight back.
Yeah.
And I think people relate to that, where they don't like how things are going in their life, and here's a guy, you find a way to fight back.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that. Mentioned it earlier, but can't talk action movies without talking about it a little bit more. Die Hard, reinvents the action movie.
Everyday guy.
Everyday guy in the 80s, and it's that everyman hero, which is why we love watching him, because in some maybe alternate dimension, we can see ourselves as his character, because much like Hutch in Nobody, John McClane's also concerned about his family. He's also concerned about his wife's safety, and he's not up to that point. All we had was really, Rambos. We just had these like super soldier, secret agent types, and he's just a regular cop, caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. I love the vulnerability, and you pair that with his wit and grit and just comedic chops that makes him one of the most relatable human, action heroes put on the screen. Perfect thriller setup, and we've been talking about Lindina, Sharon Stone's character from Nobody 2. Iconic villain Hans Gruber, played brilliantly by the late Alan Rickman, brought intelligence and charm and menace, raised the bar for movie villains, and the whole cat and mouse interplay.
And really introduced him to the big screen.
Yes, it did.
I mean, I can't think of any movies he did before then.
No, this was his big. This was the big come out role, and it changed the game. After Die Hard, and so have to acknowledge that one. I think we've got time for one or two more here, Burl. So do you have any other titles that you want to mention?
Okay, This actually has Alan Rickman in it.
Okay.
It's a Tom Selleck movie, Quigley Down Under. This was a movie that had action in it, but it was a movie that I really liked. I liked the characters. Alan Rickman played that over-the-top character, bad guy that he does so well. Yeah. And it told a story, and I thought it was just really funny. And Tom Selleck, I hope he gets back into doing movies, because I think he's a wonderful actor, even at his age, and I think he's up in the 70s, But Quigley Down Under, I thought it was a good movie.
Okay. I'll have to check it out. It's a title with which I'm unfamiliar, so I'll have to check that out. One that, last one I'll mention before we start wrapping up the show here, I would say it's more action movie adjacent, but its predecessor, because it's also a sequel. That's another reason to bring it up today. Nobody 2, talking about a sequel here. Its predecessor, very much sci-fi horror, but then we have this action turn in 92, and I'm talking Terminator 2 Judgment Day, cutting-edge spectacle, emotionally resonant storytelling. Every time AI gets brought up in the media or I hear people talking about it, I'm like, have you seen Terminator or Terminator 2? I've got 2 words for you, Skynet, Cyberdyne. But it shows how blockbusters could have heart as well as explosions, and it was also, this is for my Universal Orlando fans out there, a former super attraction for many years. It's since been replaced by the Bourne Stuntacular. But I love the action in Terminator 2. But like Nobody 2, we have heart and action. Terminator 2, heart and action. And I wanted to bring that one up because I think it shares a lot in common with the movie that we're talking about today.
Well, when you said, I thought you were going to say one of 2 movies. One, Terminator 2.
Okay.
Okay. I thought you were going to say that. The other movie I thought you may say is Aliens.
Oh, Aliens almost made my list today. Aliens almost did.
And it's a 2.
Yes,
it's a part 2 movie.
Yep.
That was very much better than its predecessor.
See, that's where we're going to have to disagree, Burl. I'm more of an Alien. We talked about when we did our top 10 films of 85 to 89 a couple of weeks ago. Aliens came up, and it wasn't on my list. Because I love how the first one's a horror film, and I don't like how the second one, there's some horror adjacency there, but it's very much more kind of like futuristic action movie. And so totally very different. Fantastic sequel. It's very rare that we get sequels that are. I'll meet you here. I'll say it's almost on par with. I'll meet you part way.
Okay.
But just real quick, we've only got a minute before I need to start wrapping up here. What is it about Aliens that makes it not only a great action movie for you, but makes it a little better than the first one?
It had a comedic element to it. The space. I don't even know what they're called, but you know what I'm talking about.
The xenomorph?
No, the army.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. They're regular people getting up out of sleep, eating, complaining about their food, complaining about this. I can see people in the service doing this, and they're going out to fight some creature that they had no idea what it is, but they say, hey, what is this, another bug hunt? And Ripley is trying to tell them, hey, no, this thing wiped out everything I had,
And we have the great line, delivered by her, "Not my daughter, you be." So here we are on public radio. But it's a line that we all remember from that movie. Listeners, if you missed any of today's episode or to listen to past episodes of Real Talk or other shows on WKGC, we are on a podcatcher near you. Just search for WKGC Public Media on your podcast service of choice. Next week, I will be out of town, so you're either going to have a replay of a past episode or a pre-recorded show. The following Monday's Labor Day, and you will have the Cinema Speak podcast take over the show. Stay tuned for Jazz in a Minor Key with Walter Hale coming up next, followed by All Things Considered starting at 3 o'clock. Thanks to all of you for listening. I hope you'll tune in again next week, same time, same place, for more Real Talk on 90.7 WKGC.
90.7 FM WKGC, Panama City.